Halloween, and welcome to FearFlix. Many years ago I did an episode on my all-time favorite horror film, John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. That film was the first journey I made into the world of horror as a child, and I haven't looked back since. Tonight, I'd like to continue that journey, as we take a look at what many people consider to be, possibly, just possibly, one of the best horror sequels of all time. Tonight, Halloween, we take a look at Halloween 2. Halloween 2 premiered in theaters in 1981, but this time around John Carpenter handed over directing duties to Rick Rosenthal, but did serve as writer and producer alongside Deborah Hill, who also worked with him on the original Halloween. The film literally picks up right where the first left off, with Dr. Loomis, once again played by Donald Pleasance, running around and searching for masked serial killer Michael Myers, who vanished at the end of the first film after being shot 6 times and falling out of a second-story balcony. Jamie Lee Curtis also reprises her role as Laurie Strode, who ends up being taken to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital to be treated for her injuries after managing to survive Michael Myers' string of murders throughout Haddonfield earlier in that night. As I mentioned, this picks up right where the first left off, with a bullet hole-littered Michael Myers still roaming the streets of Haddonfield, brutally murdering anyone in his path. One of the best things about this movie for me is that it has a very similar look and feel of the first, just without the really slow burn build-up that the first film had, or at least not quite as much of it. At this point, we're about as in the thick of things as it gets. Dr. Loomis is aware that Michael Myers is out there and killing. The sheriff goes along with it, even though part of him doesn't believe Loomis's stories and theories. We're aware that Laurie is in the hospital. We eventually learn that Michael knows that she's there and goes after her. At this point, the tension level pretty much stays consistent throughout the entire film. This is also the first time we get some really big mythology reveals that kind of set the tone for the rest of the franchise to come. The biggest of those obviously being the reveal that Laurie Strode is in fact Michael Myers' sister, and that's why he's trying to kill her. It's not explained 100% exactly why he wants to wipe out his entire fucking bloodline, but basically he just wants to kill his entire family. We don't really know why, but I guess he just hates his whole fucking family, and his whole fucking bloodline just wants to kill them all. That's at least what we're led to believe, is that he just wants to kill them. We don't know why, though. And I do think a big part of the reason why this film works so well is that it does exactly what a horror sequel should do. It takes the things that worked from the first film and builds upon them and adds more detail, rather than just trying to completely, rehash the exact same plot devices and scenes, and essentially just make the entire same film all over again. That's definitely something that I think many filmmakers or, incompetent Hollywood executives aren't able to comprehend, which is that you can't try to force lightning in a bottle twice. It just doesn't work that way. And the first Halloween is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. To be perfectly honest, it's nowhere near perfect, but the things that do work phenomenally. And those things are what they use to build upon and add more detail to with this sequel. John Carpenter's scoring, for example, in the first film is as iconic as it gets. It sets the mood in every single scene, and it adds a creep factor that is, definitely unmatched. They expand upon this in the sequel with this 80s synth flavor that just really pulls you in deeper into the already intense and foreboding atmosphere that they set up with the first film. The acting in this film is also, in my opinion, much better than the first. It's a lot less over the top, and the dialogue, for the most part, is a lot smarter than it was in the first. Now, my favorite moment of the film, I think, would definitely have to be the ending. At the time that this movie came out, this was intended to be it. There were going to be no more sequels, no excuses. This is going to be a 2-part story with a definite conclusion, which I won't spoil for you here, just in case you haven't seen the movie. And I highly recommend this film, if you couldn't tell already. but it's a very explosive ending that ties up everything really well, in my opinion. By the time we do get to the final chase scene in the hospital, it is essentially the same style of chase scene that was in the first film. I've heard some people say that the final chase scene is less scary because it's in a hospital, albeit a very dark and poorly lit hospital, but rather than being in a darkened house. But honestly, in my personal opinion, I think that the chase scene at the end of Halloween 2 works just a little bit better than the chase scene at the end of the first Halloween. That may surprise some people, but I just feel like being stalked in an empty and dark hospital, in the middle of the night with no one around would make me more terrified, seeing as how you have a ton of different hallways and rooms and corridors that Michael Myers could be hiding out in. At least with being chased in a house, there are only a certain number of rooms or places that you can hide in. I mean, it would probably be a major disadvantage for the person being chased through the house, but nevertheless, I think I'd fare just fine against old Mikey in a house chase sequence. Yeah, I think I'd do pretty good. Yes. Oh. Let's just stay calm here, okay? Let's just have a calm discussion. Or let's not.